In today's Farm Report, the American Farm Bureau Federation held its annual convention in San Diego last week. One of the topics of discussion was the capital gains tax with Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack. Cindy Zimmerman with AgriPulse has more.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack thinks some income tax reform could benefit both beginning farmers and people like himself who have farmland to sell.
As we begin the process within the Congress of talking about tax reform, invariably in audiences like this, there's almost always a conversation about the estate tax. But I really think we need to broaden that conversation to include the income tax. Because the reality is that there are a lot of folks out there like me and my wife, Christy, where we own a farm, but we don't operate the farm. And we've owned it for some time, and it's appreciated in value. And there's really no income tax incentive whatsoever for us to consider selling that land or making it available in terms of selling to a young beginning farmer. And the reason simply is that if we did that, we would pay a significant amount of capital gains tax. So I think as we talk about tax reform, is there a way in which my basis could be transferred to that new owner? Or is there a way in which there could be incentives built into the tax system that would encourage someone like myself to think about making that transfer and not have to wait for myself to die, my wife to die, and our kids then make the decision?
Vilsack says that leads to a broader conversation of non-farm operators and conservation.
American farmers and producers take a long view. They're invested in soil health. They're worried about water quantity and water quality. But non-farm operators may not be have that long-term view. They may be more interested in the short-term return. Is there a way in which we can make sure that that isn't compromising our conservation efforts, that's not compromising soil health in the long term? And I think we need to maybe take a look at those issues in more depth.
The Secretary says he's discussed the issue briefly with House Agriculture Committee Chairman Mike Conway. Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
If you have winter wheat growing from Kansas northward, chances are that brutal Arctic blast last week did very little to hurt your crop.
Most of the wheat that would have been vulnerable to further damage was protected by snow.
But Agriculture Department meteorologist Brad Rippey says growers of soft red in the southern Midwest may not have been so lucky. Most of that wheat did not have snow cover and had temperatures in some places plunging down into the below zero range, certainly cold enough to do damage.
And in part because the soft red winter wheat crop is not quite as hardy as the hard red wheat, and also because that crop in the lower Midwest was planted late and poorly established. There are some vulnerabilities there that ordinarily might not exist. So we do have concerns that we could see some further condition declines in the lower Midwestern soft red winter wheat.
And that wheat has already taken it on the chin. In Illinois at the end of November, 56% of the wheat was rated in good to excellent condition, but
by the end of December, that number had dropped to 24%.
And that, of course, did not cover what happened to it last week. In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Last week, the American Farm Bureau Federation held its annual convention in San Diego, and one of the topics that was discussed was immigration and guest workers. Cindy Zimmerman with AgriPulse has more.
Agriculture has a target on its back when it comes to compliance with guest worker regulations, according to Eileen Schofield, an immigration law attorney who held a workshop at the American Farm Bureau annual meeting this week.
Currently, there's 3 agencies which focus on employers. And the agencies have published materials say they're focusing on employers in general. But for ag in particular, farmers and ranchers, there's about 5 or 6 other separate laws which apply in that industry, which are the very big focus of the Department of Labor. We want people to follow the rules, that's for sure. But it's just another area where this industry is a target for additional investigations.
She offered a few basic tips for agricultural employers.
Number one, I would say have a very simple policy. 1 page, what the instructions are, how you're supposed to do it, which I actually shared with people today. Anybody else is welcome to it as well. So it's not so complicated. Have the 1-page policy, how you're supposed to do it. The second part I would suggest is take it really seriously. This is not something people joke about. It's not. I've heard ICE officers say, well, of course the workers are illegal. They're all Hispanic. So if ICE officers take that view, other people are going to make comments like that. And in hindsight, those don't come out well in court. So you need to have a simple policy, take the matter seriously. Have also a go-to person. any agency, because right now the DOL is doing immigration investigations. So if the DOL is asking questions, if it's immigration, if it's justice, have a czar, have somebody who's the go-to person so you can know what's happening and have your ear to the ground, as well as invite employees to share any time they feel like they've been misrepresented or they've been discriminated against. Because if someone feels that way, you want to resolve it if they have. And if they haven't, then you want them to come to you and you can explain it before they go to other agencies, which leads to an investigation. You want to fix it if you can, and you want to head off something if you can as well.
Schofield believes reforming agricultural immigration laws would be relatively easy to do compared to more comprehensive reform.
We've had 25 years of trying to do comprehensive, which has never passed because of politics. And if you have a lot of nothing, you have a lot of nothing. And I actually think it makes more sense to separate certain industries and approach them on an area that makes sense. And ag is the best already because ag already has separate immigration laws. It has an H-2A program. It has farm contractor workers. I mean, it already has laws that approach it. So to me, it's a simple carve off and say, let's deal with this industry because it's deemed a critical infrastructure industry, but we're not able to give it the critical workers it needs to operate. And that, to me, seems like a disconnect. Some other industries maybe don't carve off as well. Ag is, without a doubt, the first carve off possible.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
Everybody expected Monday's USDA stocks estimates for corn, soybeans, and wheat to be up a lot, and they were. Corn stocks December 1st, 11.2 billion bushels, up 7% from the year before. Soybeans, just over 2.5 billion bushels, up 17%. All wheat, just over 1.5 billion bushels, up about 3%. However, in all three cases, stocks stored on farms far outweighing off-farm stocks. USDA's acting chief economist Rob Johansson told us that, of course, many farmers are holding on to as much as possible, waiting for those prices to go up, but also
transportation issues have been problematic in the upper Midwest, and it's likely that has slowed down a little bit of the marketing that they were able to do. So we are seeing an easement of those transportation issues, and it's likely that a lot of those on-farm stocks that we are seeing will be loosened going forward into the winter and to the spring.
And prices have come up. USDA Monday did add a dime to its projected average wheat price, 15 cents to corn, 20 cents to soybeans. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Tomorrow is the cow-calf workshop going on over at the Horizon Center in Pierce. Emily Wilmus with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office has one last reminder.
This is your final reminder for the cow-calf workshop in Morrison County. It is being held tomorrow, January 20th at 5:30 p.m. at the Horizon Center in Pierce. Beef producers and egg business professionals from all counties are welcome. Dinner will be served. The curriculum at this workshop will be the same as the cow-calf days held by University of Minnesota Extension around the state in February. The topics include producing and grazing cover crops, structure and future of the new beef industry, and record keeping for the cow-calf producer. The Horizon Center is located at 26814 143rd Street in Pierce. This workshop is offered free of charge thanks to our generous sponsors, Mississippi Valley Cattlemen's Association, Central Soda Cooperative, Farmers and Merchants State Bank of Pierce, and Lake Henry Implement Incorporated. Again, the Morrison County Cow-Calf Workshop will be held Tuesday, January 20th at 5:30 at the Horizon Center in Pierce. If you plan on attending, please RSVP by the end of today to Emily at 612-756-3977. Again, RSVP to Emily at 612-756-3977 by day's end if you plan to attend the workshop tomorrow. This is Emily Wilmus with University of Minnesota Extension.
Pork production, says Acting World Outlook Board Chair Seth Meyer.
Increased pork production by 275 million pounds. And this is driven by that December 23rd Hog and Pigs report where we saw both strong expected farrowings and a rebound in pigs per litter. The pigs per litter number for the September-November was a record for that quarter,
which points to a positive rebounding from PEDV. Meantime,
we increased beef production by 160 million pounds from our estimate last month based upon carcass weights. Those animals getting a little bit heavier, the feeders making the best use of those limited number of cattle that they can.
looking at meat prices,
We softened the 2014 steer price by 72 cents and the hog price by 19 cents. That's prices today. And that fall in steer prices both this year and the dollar decline that we see for 2015 from our previous expectation is some packer resistance as their margins get squeezed.
there was also a $3.25 decrease on the hog price. For USDA Radio, Susan Carter, Washington, D.C.